G'day everyone, welcome to another GAK9 Australia video review. This video is of my own dog Gaston working in a forest nearby to Canberra with the goal of the session to be working on our proximity alert. Now this video we haven't tracked in about 6 months since we last did it in September. So this also serves as a pretty fantastic example of once a dog is trained and learnt the lessons for itself independently, those lessons are typically retained extremely well in a dog. Don't get me wrong, Gaston is nearly 5 years old and we've been tracking since he was 8 weeks old, so you'd expect he kind of knows what he's doing even with a 6-month break, but regardless, still really great to see that he tracks just like we tracked yesterday, despite the huge gap in sessions. So for anyone new here watching this, I really like to work at the end of a 30-foot or 10-meter line in metric. The reason for this is it gives the dog a lot of room to work independently. It gives me the opportunity to see what the dog is doing easily, to take in the terrain, the weather conditions, and consider everything without being rushed and without being on top of my dog. I do have footage and experience working in environments where you can't see more than a meter in front of you. And even in those environments, I've still quite successfully worked on a 30-foot line. You just get really good at tracking by feel, and the tension through the leash tells you the story instead of actually being able to see the dog's body language. Very similar to working at night if you don't have night vision equipment, for example. So in the GAK9 system, we're really just concerned with the dog's actual ability to follow an odor, scent discriminate, and locate the subject that we're trying to locate. Now, what does that mean? It means we're not particularly concerned necessarily about the dog looking a certain way as it is tracking. It doesn't matter if the dog's nose is on the ground, if the dog's head is up, if the dog's working a little bit of blown odor, or if it's sticking mostly to ground disturbance. What is most important out of all of those criteria and elements I just described is so long as the dog is doing it effectively and consistently and reliably, then that is the good thing. If we could detect odor for ourselves with our own nose, then we wouldn't need the dog. So, we rely on the dog to use its olfactory senses to solve the tracking problem for us. And for me, it doesn't matter what the dog looks like. You'll notice here that Gaston's head is a mixture of up and down. He oscillates left and right of the track line at times, although for reference we are extremely close for most of this track to where the person has actually walked. But given the warmth, the light breeze that's moving through the terrain as we're tracking on this day, where the person has physically walked is not necessarily where the most viable part of the track actually is. And that's only, accentuated when you're working in, say, urban environments with flat, hard surfaces where odor moves very easily, is also degraded much more quickly, and what a track looks like in that environment does not necessarily look like how it does here. So you're soon going to see Gaston approach and hit a corner on the track. Now, it's really nice when your dog hits the corner and immediately goes left or right, whether it be on a sharp or an obtuse angle, it doesn't matter. It's always a good feeling, and that does happen a lot. But for me, what's most important is that my dog is actually able to solve the problem. Now, it's important to call out here a key difference in how we train dogs to track versus how potentially some other methods do it. Now, this is not to be denigrating or put any other systems down, but it is to really make note of a key difference here. In some systems, if the dog departs from the actual track line or overshoots a corner, for example, whilst the dog is on leash and the handler is doing their thing and trying to solve the problem, some trainers may try and tell the handler to bring the dog back to the track line because they know where the track is. Now, that's really easy to do. And that's also not teaching the dog anything. It's also not teaching the handler anything. For me, I'm far more interested in constantly observing the dog, identifying changes of behavior, slowing down, being aware of my surroundings, and trying to interpret what the dog's change in body language is telling me. Now, just back there, Gaston was tracking on consistently, and then he started to go into a little bit of hunting behavior before he picked up the exit from the corner and found his way up in the direction we're moving in now. So it's important to be patient, to observe your dog, take in what it is they're telling you through their body language, and make an assessment from there instead of guiding a dog or pulling it back to the track. In reality, you will not know where the track is, so it pays to be prepared and capable of solving it yourself now.
Hello, nice proximity alert.
So here, Gaston is offered a sit on his own without any commands, which is his proximity alert. Now, this was developed through a lot of frustration, anticipation. There was never actually a sit or a down or anything actually taught to Gaston. This is all developed through offered behaviours, conditioned as we approach and observe the change of behaviour as we hit the direct odor pull from the subject that it is that we're tracking. Now, it would be useful to have some diagrams on the screen, but I'm not going to put hours and hours into this presentation today. It's worth pointing out that the direct odor pull of the subject that we're tracking can throw out little bits of vapor that the dog detects on, and we call that the fire alert. That will often not have a direction to it. The dog will show alert, and then that alert will run out and the dog will typically return back to consistent tracking behavior. That's pretty much what we're seeing here quite nicely. But again, Gaston's giving us another alert here, so he's clearly getting a bit more of that direct odor pull off the subject, and so he's offering an alert as we get closer. Now, this alert is quite advanced. For most dogs, what we're really relying on is seeing a strong change of behavior that indicates that they are close to the subject as the animation increases. Dogs who've been trained on articles, for example, frequently in the early stages when they start doing this type of training will not exhibit huge changes of behavior, as article tracking actually trains against this. There are plenty of examples though where organizations train both, where they use articles and they also use these sort of man-trailing techniques to get the odor pull problem at the end. And I commend them. It's not how I train, but as long as you're ticking all the boxes, that is truly the most important thing. There are many paths to roam. So long as you're training a dog that you need and it's doing what you need it to do, that's the most important thing. I'm training Gaston here to be an excellent demonstration of what I think a good dog trained to track, a person, whether they be armed or not, looks like. The quiet, silent, offered sit/down freezing behavior when he hits direct odor pull, and then the gradual intensity lift as we get closer. You'll see him start to offer sits and downs. He'll even start to resist the alert a little bit, which we're seeing here. That tells me that we're getting extremely close, and we're getting closer, and that we're actually in the direct odor pull here. This is not an alert that's far away now, that's a little off. We're in the odor pull. Now at this point, it's really important to read our terrain, our wind, to have hopefully some sort of concept of how old the track is. An odor pull that's an hour old, 2 hours old, in fairly still conditions will be quite a large odor pull. If this was fresh, 5-10 minutes old, and you're seeing this type of alert, then you're probably almost stepping on top of the threat, and you would want to be responding accordingly. Now at this point here, I'm just going to let Gaston off leash. But we're just delaying a little bit here because for the purposes of this track, I'm trying to build some time in Gaston where we just quietly pause and wait before proceeding with the next part of the track, whether it be continuing forward on leash or letting him off leash. For this track, we're going to let him off leash so we can solve the odor pull on his own without being interfered with by the leash. That's more for his enjoyment than any, tactical reason or any whatever like that. This is just fun now. He's done his job. He's tracked right up into the odor pool, and now he gets to have a nice little game where he gets to find the actual person for himself off leash without being interfered with by me. Now the last point I'll make here is about track ends. There are many different ways you can end a track. You could end it with a bite, you could end it with the track layer holding a wedge, you can have the track layer with a reward, you can have them with food. You can have the reward administered by the handler once the dog is up on the track layer. The options are actually endless. For me, the only real question about what is better, truly, is about what do you need. If you are tracking, elderly people on the regular in your private time, then it probably pays not to do bite work at the end of the track, because then you've got a liability for yourself. Conversely, if you have a dog where you expect to track up to a subject and then let it off leash to then go in for an apprehension, then having suitably trained people who are able to lay tracks for you is really important.